Hello, and welcome to my workshop here in the Lehigh Gorge in northeastern Pennsylvania. And for this video, I'm going to talk about tiny libraries. The project in front of you is a tiny library. I built it for my daughter for her house back in New Jersey. And basically, a tiny library is a kind of a library you put in front of your house on a post, and you fill it with books, and people come and take books and leave books, and it's a free library. It's not really a lending library, but I guess people can return books if they want. There is a national organization that keeps track of them, that you can register your library, which my daughter did. You get a little plaque for it, and you're on a database so people can come and check out, what books you have. This one is two shelves, because I think she puts kids books in one shelf and adult books in the other, maybe, or maybe all adult books. I'm not sure, but they're kind of a neat little thing. I'm going to warn you ahead of time. This isn't a how-to video. I've been a professional woodworker for 40 years, and I was a woodworker long before that as a kid and teenager. And I kind of just build things fluidly and I don't do this for fun, for a living, YouTube. So I don't sit there and record, building and that kind of thing. And I honestly don't have any plans. I just built this off the cuff, kind of using scrap materials that I had laying around my shop. So you can see the door there. It's a solid wood door, two acrylic panels, plexiglass, so it's plastic, so nothing to worry about glass. The inside is plywood. The core of the library is plywood, and you can see the two shelves. When you're designing it, you have to be careful to allow for enough room to get the books in. You want people to be able to get the books out, so you have to leave enough height, because some of that's going to be taken up by the door, by the trim around the door and that thing. So when you're planning it out, find the largest book you're going to put in there and just make sure you have enough space. Otherwise, you're going to have to turn them sideways and get them in, and it's going to be hard for people to get books out. You can see there's just two little black hinges on the door with a magnetic catch and some knob I had laying around my workshop. We're looking at the roof now, which is actually individual cedar shingles, kind of like a real cedar roof. I had some scrap pieces of cedar, and I cut these shingles and kept the rough side of the cedar up to use them. You can see my shop. I'm walking over and see the mess from cutting all the shingles. Again, just kind of by eye what looked right as far as the size. The random widths is what you want to do, and they're just held on by nails and some caulk and stuff. Little pins so you don't see them, and hopefully they don't rust. But the rest of the library, other than the plywood core, is built out of that mahogany, which you see right there. Mahogany is a good exterior, waterproof type wood. All that stuff came from a house that we had worked on, that we were ripping it out. It was actually beams and panels in like a 1970s, kind of bi-level house that had, been fancy at the time. But they wanted it out, and it was all this really nice, kind of Honduran mahogany. So we took it, and it's been I've been working through it for years now in my shop. There was so much of it that I've used it for probably about a half dozen projects. That's kind of, I'm showing you how I made the chimney, again, out of mahogany. It's actually four pieces of wood glued together. I do have some tools that an individual probably won't have in their workshop. There you can see the actual chimney. Again, it's a solid block of wood with the cap and the other part on separate. It was spray painted like gray primer, multiple coats, and then the red paint was dabbed on with a sponge. You can see the windows, and again, things like the chimney and the windows, I made on a CNC router, which is a very expensive, large computer-controlled machine. You can kind of see here some of the pieces that didn't work out when I was kind of testing it out. You also have to be able to draw on CAD, But that's not to say you couldn't cut these out by hand. It's just quicker for me to do it on the machine, and I'm used to working with the machine as a professional woodworker, so it's easy for me to do. But you could make the same parts yourself with a jigsaw and some time and patience. So there's nothing to say you can't. The siding is pieces of that mahogany. The windows are all pieces of mahogany. The shutters are pieces of the mahogany that I glued up, and it's all mahogany. I'm going to finish up with some construction, some videos and some pictures of the construction, the few that I took. You can see there, that's how I'm painting the chimney. It's just a foam brush, kind of just dabbing it on, over the gray to give you kind of the effect with the mortar line and everything. And I'm not completely painting it solid red because you want some of the gray to show through, so it gives it that aged kind of brick look. And then I overspray that with a clear, like an exterior clear varnish that's rated for exterior out of a spray can. I did the roof with the clear. All the rest of the paint was exterior paint, so it was fine. I didn't have to do that. But the raw cedar and then the chimney, because this was just craft paint, which is really an indoor paint. So here you can see the fiberglass, or I'm sorry, not fiberglass, the mahogany side, where it's kind of raw. Like it gives you an idea of what I was working with when I started out. And again, I'm sorry, but I don't have plans. I just did this by eye. That's kind of the way I work. And, I just held some things up and guessed on sizes, and I might have ripped a couple things off and started over, but I just ripped everything on the table saw out of that scrap mahogany that I had, and some scrap cedar I had, and there I make sure you prime everything on these because they're going to be exposed to the weather. So that's an exterior alkyd based primer, so it's an oil based, especially if you're going over real wood. You could also build them out of like an AZEK material, which is a cellular PVC. You can cut that just like wood. That'd be a good product to use because it's not going to rot at all. And you could really use anything. You could use regular pine if that's all you have or that's all you can buy. Just use that, and just make sure you seal it and prime it well. That's all, and maintain it over the years. Make sure you keep painting it, and you'll be fine. Now so the brick, again, it's probably something that's going to be beyond most people. That was actually cut on that CNC I talked about before. I cut the brick pattern. I just drew it in CAD, and then I had to cut it on a flat piece of mahogany, and then I cut the mahogany into strips, to kind of like the outside width of what I wanted each facet of the chimney to be, and then I ripped them again, but with the blade on a 45 to create the 45-degree bevels, so I could glue all four pieces together to give that chimney, effect, the look of a chimney. You can see there on the left, there's a piece that I've cut. You can see the saw blades angled there to cut them with the fence. It's a little dicey cut, so be careful. You can see I use 2 push sticks to hold everything in. That's what an old shop teacher taught me, that you don't just use 1 push stick to feed the saw, use 2. One to hold it against the fence, and the other to push the material through. The saw also has, even though the blade's exposed, it has a riving knife, which I believe is a much safer safety device than having like some kind of hood over the blade. So there, I'm gluing up the chimney into 4 pieces. You can see I'm using, so you can't see the label, but behind you to the left, there's the bottle of glue, which is Titebond 3. Titebond glue I've used for years. I like Titebond glue. They have Titebond 1, Titebond 2, Titebond 3. Titebond 1 is mainly for interior woodworking. It dries fast. I use that for a lot. use that mostly. Titebond 2 is water resistant, so it's good to use. You can use that outside as long as you're probably painting whatever you're going to use it on. But Titebond 3 is waterproof, so I use Titebond 3 for gluing everything here. So I glued the shingles in and nailed them too. You can see there I'm putting the shingles on. I ran them long on the top row and then trimmed them in place. I had kind of was playing around with the blue paint. Again, using things that I had laying around the shop. I didn't want to buy, anything. Not that my daughter isn't worth it, but I just figured I'd use up some of the stuff that I had left over that I was saving and tripping over. So I was trying the blue paint. It didn't work out. I ended up going with kind of a light gray, which in the end I think looked a lot nicer. That CNC machine I talk about, you can see in the rear left corner there, the blue machine right there. So for the roof, here's like cedar that I ripped down to kind of whatever looked right. I just made a bunch of rips and ripped it to width, and then chopped it up on a miter saw into little pieces, and put it in place. You can also see in this picture one of those archtop windows, which were kind of a pain, and I wish maybe I hadn't bothered, but they just fitting them in and doing all the cutting and everything, and all the windows are just multiple pieces. There's the trim on the outside, then there's kind of like an inner trim, and then the frame, and then the window panel itself. So there's multiple pieces built up, and then there's glass. There's acrylic that was cut and fit in there. And when I say acrylic, I mean plexiglass. Acrylic, it's the same thing. I wouldn't use any real glass on one of these, just in case you don't want somebody getting hurt. So there's the project almost done. The shutters are made kind of like old style shutters. They're not louvered shutters. They're plank shutters with cross pieces. They're, just basically kind of like shaker style looking shutters. And they're made out of individual pieces, and they're just glued together, and then I spray painted them blue. So I did use blue somewhere, but I used spray paint for them. In one of the earlier videos or pictures, you probably saw, a piece of paper with all the spray paint on it that I had been painting the shutters. I used a lot of clear caulk on this just to seal everything. You can see for the cap of the roof, I used kind of just like two strips of wood that are overlapped. And again, I caulked it. The chimney's caulked. I tried to caulk everything because you don't want the books getting wet. You also, on the door, you want to make sure you put a lip on the door so the rain can't blow in there. So, again, I wish I did was one of those guys that did how-to videos, but hopefully this inspired you and gave you some ideas. You can feel free to post any questions. I don't always check on everything frequently, but when I am here and I do see a question posted, I try to answer them. So I'd be happy to answer them. And to preempt anything, no, I'm not going to build these things for for money. It would be way more money than you'd want to pay for them, just because I had a lot of time in this. I had not 100 hours, but I don't know what, but at least probably 50 hours, maybe more, building this. So it's not something I could make money doing, or that people would want to pay for for a little tiny building here. You should try it yourself. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is not perfect. There's a lot of things wrong with this, but I set my standards kind of high. But try building them yourself, and they're fun, and it's a good family project. And it's unfortunately, my daughter sent me this picture after it was installed. My son actually put it in for her, and it's on a 4x4 post. You need to think about that ahead of time, how you're going to secure it to the post, because it can be a little heavy. This probably was about 60 pounds maybe, so you want to make sure it's secured to a post and stable. and it's gonna, so it's not gonna fall on somebody when they're getting their books out. But they got a little snow, so there's some snow on the cedar roof, and it's kind of a pretty picture. I did put a light, two lights in there, but they're like battery lights that are supposed to come on in the dark. But I think because it's so dark in there during the day, they were on all the time, and they burned out already, or they were very light. So I do have to address that, and kind of get her some brighter lighting inside there. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and again, I'd be happy to answer any questions. But try it yourself. There's a lot of online information about these. And thanks for watching. Take care.